What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we're continuing with our Moon Through Houses series, and we'll be talking about Moon in the third, and what happens when the Moon comes into the third house in your birth chart. So, what's the Moon? The Moon represents our emotional response to things, our instinctual nature, our emotional nature, how we nurture others and need to be nurtured in return. It also represents the relationship with our mother, our imagination, so on and so forth. The third house, the original house of Gemini, it's the house of media, it's the house of communication, intellect, hobbies, specifically hobbies by hand, right? It represents show insights to the relationship with our siblings, our day-to-day interactions around our neighborhood, and things like that. All right. So when your moon is in the third house, okay, we know that the moon is naturally all over the place. It changes signs every 2 days, right? So when it gets into the third house, the original house of Mercury, which is a fast moving house, it's moving even faster. It needs constant stimulation. So no matter when your moon is in the third house, no matter what sign you're in, you're automatically an intellectual. And the reason is your mind is never at peace unless it's being stimulated or it's learning. All right. This is the house of hobbies. So your mind constantly wants to try out new things. So, this is one of the positions that show where you can really see that, okay, sign and house expression are type similar, because this is very similar to having a moon in Gemini, except that the sign on the cusp of the third house is going to show what kind of hobbies you lean towards. All right. So for instance, if this is a third house Leo moon, they are automatically going to be finding interest in hobbies in all the creative performing arts, acting, singing, whatever. All right. If it's Scorpio, they're gonna have this affinity for like psychology, sexuality, the occult, things like that. All right. So sign, that's what it does. It gives you a intellectual mind in the sense of I need to absorb lots of information, and from this you go out there and you find your niche, because the mind here is never really settled, but it becomes settled through quenching one's curiosity. All right. Now, this being the original house of Gemini, and writing and speaking, this is a huge, huge indicator, right? Especially if your moon is at a very high degree in your chart, it's going to show that your emotions must be communicated. They're not they must be communicated. And from being, and the easiest way to communicate them is through writing. All right. So this is like somebody with moon in the third. If you don't write, even if I'm not saying write professionally or write to show people, but just write, because like I said, that is how you're going to find your emotional balance. All right. So the element is going to show how these emotions are expressed and felt, but at the same time there still needs to be a release, and that's going to come in that intellectual way of like writing or just speaking. Okay. So the next thing about moon in the third is that, like, where it's very Gemini like, and that's what I said, it's similar to like being a Gemini sun or a Gemini moon. You go through a lot of jobs. You can't really stay in one job for too long. And even if it's like in an earth sign, you would have to have a lot more earth to ground you in that sense. But moon in the third, these people have tried everything from fast food to security, and just always seem to be moving on to another job, and that extends to the curiosity. All right. So this is also the house of siblings, right? And the relationships with our siblings. And with moon here, it automatically puts a very receptive and nurturing bond with your siblings here. All right. For a guy, this could signify you being surrounded by tons of women or sisters or something like that. Okay. And them giving a lot of care to you or whatever. For for a woman, it could indicate you being a mother figure, a mother type figure to your siblings, right? And with it, third house also representing our like our everyday neighborhood. It shows like an emotional connection to the place one grew up at. All right, so this is a position where we can see a lot of teachers, like a lot of people become teachers and go back home and teach in their own, in their own town where they grew up. It's an emotional connection to home. All right. And as far as the relationship with mom here, it's normally very good. Mom is very Mercurian like and communicative, right? And this is also a position where mom could have been a writer, mom could have been a teacher, and therefore just gave you that push for a lot of intellectual pursuits. All right, but overall, what you need to know with this moon is that to get the most out of it, you need to constantly seek to be learning and to express your emotions. Your emotions are not meant to be bottled. Okay. Secondly, you want to make it a point to really be close and have a bond with your siblings. It should be easier. It should be rather easy to do so, right? Secondly, and lastly, keep the mind active. All right, keep the mind active, and you'll never veer off. You'll avoid things like depression and things of that nature. The way the way to see how to further define your creativity is to or how you should express yourself is to see the ruler of the third house and where it is at. Okay, and you'll also want to see, of course, where Mercury is placed. And lastly, your fifth house. You want to see what else is in the fifth house. All right, those is because fifth house is the actual talent. All right, third house is the hobby. Fifth house is the talent. So um, if you have a lot of if your third house moon gives you a lot of ideas and things like that, the fifth house shows what talent it is that's going to help you carry it out. So those are things to pay attention to. All right. So guys, this is my interpretation of moon in the third house. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys subscribe to my channel, feel free to do so. Until next time, peace.